Hi everyone, welcome to THT, and today I'm going to show you 4 more competitive decks for Legend of the Force. The Galactic Championship are approaching, and as we are getting closer to the tournament, you want to be aware of every single deck that you might encounter, and I'm here to show you as many competitive decks as possible on THT with my own version and my own analysis on how the deck operates. So this video is sponsored by Card Market, the best marketplace to buy and sell cards in Europe. And the first list I want to show you is the brand new Kylo deck. So this there's been a lot of experimentation around Kylo Ren, and it turns out that the best version of the deck happens to be a green version. So currently there's 2 major versions that are both kind of being played. It's a Data Vault version, which is a bit more controlled, that has obviously the 8 extra HP, but doesn't have the same ability to swing the game as early as turn 5 or turn 4 if you ramped with Vader. And you have the version of ECL with ECL that can completely swing the game with Vader on curve, either on turn 5 or turn 4, depending on if you ramped or not. So there are 2 versions. Once again, one is going to be able to defend itself a little bit better, but is going to have less HP. The other one is going to have more HP, but doesn't have the same abilities to swing the game back in his favor with Vader. Obviously, there are other cards in the game that really benefit from ECL. Vader is not the only card you can ECL. Anakin Skywalker, for example, specifically if you manage to get yourself an heroism unit in your discard, alongside villainy units, will allow you to get yourself an ECL Anakin Skywalker that can be extremely deadly. Also, of course, the fact that the deck only plays 50 cards does make the ECL version more consistent. It will find the key card of the deck, the Anakin Skywalker, a little bit easier. Same for Vader. Same for like the key upgrade that you want to have in your discard pile. So why are we playing Kylo Ren instead of playing Kira? So basically Kylo Ren, basically the main objective of the card is to use the ability to put in your discard pile a wide variety of different upgrades. So then whenever actually deploys, he gets himself a very, very powerful deployment in terms of the amount of upgrades that you can put on him, and he can really completely stabilize the board. So he does deploy much later than Akira, and his leader ability doesn't actually help you stabilizing a game. However, his leader deployment is far more impactful. So it's kind of a give and take. Kylo is more kind of late game oriented, where he's going to have a huge timing around the time where he's going to be using ECL Vader or ECL Anakin, and he's going to have another huge timing with Kylo. So the whole objective of the deck is to kind of stay alive, try to ramp in the early stage of the game, get into this 6 resource, get yourself a huge Anakin or a huge Vader, then deploy Kylo for a huge Kylo deployment, and then just the next turn after start dropping down massive units like Reinforcement Walker or Avenger. So it's really kind of it's not a deck that is necessarily trying to play the game forever. Like, it's not really a deck that is going to try to make the game super long, and it's going to inevitably reach this sort of inevitability. It doesn't have the same inevitability that a control deck might have. That's the reason we're not playing cards like Vigilance, for example, because we're not really looking to mill out our opponent. We're looking to hammer down our opponent around those huge timings, and in those huge timings, really finding the specific cards that you need is very important. That's why I personally prefer the 50 card version, because it's going to allow you to find this a little bit more consistently. It's going to allow you to consistently find this huge turn 5, this huge turn 6, and this huge turn 7 that is going to allow you to seal the deal. So what are we playing specifically in that version? So we are currently, of course, playing a variety of different upgrades. We have Bolstering Endurance, which is the most amount of stats that you can possibly have for one resource. It's very, very relevant for Kylo, as it allows you to really take the best out of every single resource you have and really turns him into an absolute monster. And since he's the leader, he's going to be very difficult to kill because there's not really many removals that can kill a leader outright. We have the Hellroom Lightsaber, which may sound surprising to some people, but it has a lot of stats for the cost that the restore one is actually quite relevant, and it is an heroism lightsaber, which is very relevant because then we're going to be discarding it, using Kylo, and making our Anakin stronger. Legal Authority is basically turns our Kylo into a removal where we get to capture enemy units. And once again, since Kylo is going to have so many stats, it's going to be so difficult to kill. And we get just such a huge timing, completely wiping the opponent board and putting a gigantic unit on the battlefield. And then obviously we have the star of this deck is the Craving Power, which is going to, of course, be sort of a barrage that we can bring back from the discard using Kylo, making Kylo even stronger and dealing with very large units. So this is basically combining Craving Powers with Legal Authority. We can really, basically at the same time, in one motion, put a gigantic unit on the board and stabilize the game at the same time. So that's basically what we're running. So we're obviously running our Anakin Skywalker, which is very strong in this deck, as we have running 2 copies of Rey, 2 copies of Emerald Lightsabers, and we're running a 50 card deck. Once again, the consistency of only running 50 cards does help with the deck, and this means that our odds to be, and obviously with Kylo, we have an ability that allows us to discard our own cards, making it quite easy to get an heroism a card in our discard, and increasing our chances to get a double -3/-3, which makes Anakin such a powerhouse. So then we got obviously the Vader ECL, in my opinion, is one of the most powerful combinations in the game, being able to ambush into a 5 health units, and at the same time killing any other units on the battlefield, regardless of the size, whether it's on ground or on space, is one of the most powerful things you can do, specifically against mid-range decks. And then the rest of the deck is pretty much what you would expect for a soft control deck in that color combination. Once again, this deck is not really truly a control deck. It's really trying to kind of get himself a huge Kylo turn. It is definitely on the control side of the mid-range deck, but I still would consider here the mid-range. We are running the full package of ramp. Having ramp is very important to get ourselves closer to a Kylo Ren as quickly as possible, as well as allowing us to get ourselves faster into the Vaders, into the Anakin, which is also super relevant. You were surprised to see that we're only playing 2 copies of Barrage. I feel like when we're already playing 3 Craving Powers, it's kind of is sometimes a little bit too much to play Barrage. There might be a meta where Barrage is very strong. I would say that overall Barrage is not nearly as good in this deck as it would be in a Kira deck, so that's something that is very important. I think one of the reasons why I prefer ECL over Data Vault, specifically for Kylo, is because Kylo really need to hit specific cards. He has, of course, the Anakin synergies, the Vader synergies, the and also the heroism card you want to have in your discard. It really, and also of course the important upgrades. So it really has specific card that he wants to find in every single game, while Kira is not really dependent in any of those cards. Kira is a much more kind of well-rounded deck that can kind of operate with a variety of different draws, while this deck really depends a little bit more on specific synergies and specific cards. So as far as the late game, we're playing the Timely Intervention as other ways to give our units ambush. Once we use the ECL, it gives us more ways to use Vaders, and really get ourselves an ambush. Then we get ourselves the Darth Vader. Of course, now we have, of course, the Supremacy tie is another option that we can grab from Vader to get ourselves some Sentinels in space, which is great. Reinforcement Walker, which is specifically nasty in combination with Timely Intervention, and obviously kind of late game powerhouse Avenger. So just want to say here for the specific version. So people asking me, in which case would I recommend Data Vault? Which case would I recommend ECL? I feel like ECL is going to be better against mid range because Vader is such an insane part of the is one of the most powerful cards you can have, and obviously an ECL version will find you get better chances to find Timely Intervention, and you will of course get yourself a Vader ambush on curve. So I think against mid-range, it's undeniable that ECL is going to be better, and I'm anticipating the meta to be extremely mid-range. However, the Data Vault is probably better against aggro because you get yourself 8 extra HP, and against certain aggro decks, games don't even go as long as you can actually use Vader. Usually Vader intervenes sometimes even too late. So overall, I feel like, but I think regardless of whether you're playing the Data Vault or the ECL version, you're going to have a bad time against aggro in this deck. Kylo has the massive inconvenience of being very weak to aggro, so Data Vault is a bit more balanced, that it does a little bit better against aggro, but it's still extremely unfavored. So my opinion is, like, if you're gonna be wanting to run a Kylo deck for the Galactic Championship, My opinion is to go all in on killing mid range and hope that you're going to be dodging aggro. It's kind of a meta call. You think that mid range is going to see a heavy amount of play, and you're kind of ignoring aggro as a result. And I think this could be a very good meta call in my opinion, because it turns out that in a very, very heavy mid-range meta, aggro has a hard time existing. So you could definitely make the gambit of saying, okay, I'm not going to be facing aggro. I'm going to be focusing on beating mid-range. And I think the ECL version will do a better job at doing that. Talking very quickly about the sideboard, we get the Merciless Contest to get more copies of Power Dark Side in matchup in which is very important to get a removal on turn 2. You get yourself the... I forgot the name of that card. Sorry, this is the... trying to forgot the name of that card, but anyway, this is a sideboard card for the hard control decks to make our Kylo Ren cannot be defeated. It's out of aspect, but in matchup in which it's good, it's really, really strong. Then we got the Power Dark Side, the Purpose's Returns to bring back all of our powerful force units, including the Snoke, and then we also have the Devastators as well, so more late game against control decks basically. So here's with our Quinn Tarkintown deck, a deck that nobody talks about, but I feel like is going to be an extremely powerful deck in the Galactic Championship. And there's multiple reasons for this. The first reason is obviously because it was one of the most powerful decks in set 4, and it got some really significant upgrades with the new expansion. The second reason is because it is obviously a Tarkintown deck, which gives them and Tarkintown is known to be one of the most powerful counters to Hantu, which, as we know, is going to be one of the most powerful deck in the game. So Tarkintown, as far as Tarkintown deck is concerned, I think that Quinlan is probably one of the best options you can have, and it will really, really be very strong at shutting down the Hantu decks in general. And yeah, so let's talk about the upgrade that this deck is getting. The first one I want to talk about is the 3 copies of Adigalia, of course, as the 2-drop. Having another really solid 2-drop Jedi Force, in the early stage of the game is very, very relevant for the game. It allows you to enable 4th earlier in the game. It gives you a cheap way to enable 4th. It's just a really solid card with a really good stat and a relevant ability. Other than this, we're also playing the N1 Starfighter, which I feel like is a really nice option to have whenever you want to be playing in space and be a little bit more aggressive. Having that option is really nice, and I feel like N1 Starfighter is a bit better positioned in the current meta than what you would have with an A-Wing, because if you think about the card that can ambush, you can have like stuff like Blue Leader or even Sabine Masterpiece. N1 Starfighter will actually trade with them, while the A-Wing will actually keep them alive. So I feel like in the current meta, the Starfighter, I think, is slightly better. Is slightly better. And yeah, so as far as the 3-drop is concerned, it's pretty classic. We're playing the Ezra as a Force Enabler. Millennium Falcon is more like a finisher. Cassian can be played on turn 2, but most likely we prefer to smuggle. The Fang Fighters give us an answer against upgrades. And Red 5 is just an excellent card in the current meta. Red 5 is one of the best cards you can play against Hantu, and it turns out it's even better in Quinlan because of all the units we're able to ping. The 4-drop is the same. Ahsoka, Kira. Ahsoka is still an absolute powerhouse of a card, and it makes 4th so much better. And yeah, and then as we go into the 5-drops, we also still play the Plo Koon, which is still incredible in this deck. And then this is where we get more new stuff with the Depa Belara, which is 5/7 for 6. I think this card is really, really strong in Quinlan, because once you get to combine her with the Quinlan Ping, she can kill stuff as big as 6 health, and also has the Saboteur, which is very relevant, surprisingly relevant. There's actually quite a few shielded units. For example, the Bella she can actually one-shot what's it called? A Vader, which is very nice. Then we got the 7-drops. So in 7-drop we got a bit of diversity. We're running for a 2-2 split between Han Solo and Qui-Gon Jinn. It really comes down to the situation whether Qui-Gon or Han Solo is better. So I went for a 2-2 split. Qui-Gon will allow you to snipe all those 7 health leaders, which see a heavy amount of play, even more so here with the expansion. Basically, the only new leader that sees significant amount of play in the expansion is going to be Talzin, and Talzin has 7 health, so Qui-Gon Jinn really helps with this. You can one-shot also with Han Solo as well, but sometimes you want to go all the way up to 8 with Qui-Gon Jinn, and your leader is not always alive. Sometimes you're just being shot, it's just being killed. So Qui-Gon Jinn can one-shot things, and when it dies, it can also kill another unit. So Qui-Gon feels like he's a little bit more situational than Han Solo, but in a situation where it's good, he's amazing, and he also has the advantage of being a Force unit, which will enable your 4th Thor, which is a nice little boost, a nice little bonus. As far as the sideboard is concerned, it's a pretty classic sideboard for Quinlan's. More pillage, because it combines really well against 4th Thor, really good against control, Shamsin against ramp, and Gare soldiers against more aggressive decks, where we want to be a little bit more aggressive. The Bamboozle, of course, against pilot decks, which are still a thing in this meta, or decks which simply love to have those upgrades coming in. So this is currently my version of the deck. I'm not pretending it's the perfect one, but I think it's a really solid version, and it kind of show you what you can expect if you're going to be running into a Quinlan. This is the kind of card you will have to expect running into them. Then my third deck is going to be the Han Green Force deck. So I've already shown Force deck with that color combination earlier with Obi-Wan, but this time around I'm showing you the Han one. So basically, if I had to compare Han to Obi-Wan, I would say Obi-Wan is a little bit more consistent in terms of like it's a little bit harder to shut down because it plays really so many more Force units, and the fact that the leader himself is Force is very relevant, and you also get to use the Force more often with the ability. On the other hand, Han does enable you to play far stronger cards. Obviously, the Han's ability is so much more useful than the one of Obi-Wan. So overall, I feel like the deck is a lot better in terms of raw power, but sometimes it can be shut down in terms of like your opponent can really prevent it from getting the Force ability. So in order to combat this is why we're playing a lot of 2-drops that have the Force. So basically between the Grogu, the Obi-Wan, the Adigalia, and the Grogu, we have 12 turn 1 play that basically enable the Force, which is very, very consistent. We obviously have the Grogu into General's Blade play, or Adigalia into General's Blade, Obi-Wan into General's Blade, Grogu into General's Blade. So if you're playing in this deck that cannot deal with this, we're going to have a very, very good time. And all those units except the Grogu are Jedi, which enables the General's Blade ability. So we have, I think it has the highest consistency out of any deck to be pulling off the General's Blade turn 2 play. Then after this, we're going to have 3 copies of Red 5 because it's so good in the current meta against other Han 2 decks. Obviously, the blue leader is incredibly flexible with Han 2 is one of the best cards in the game, and in Han 2 it's specifically nasty. Basically, every single card that we are playing that is not a Force unit is one of the best cards in the game. Cassian, obviously, and then Poe Dameron, which combined with Han 2's ability is basically a 4/5 for 3 in space. We have also Heathcoth. Heathcoth is amazing in this deck because if we manage to get the 4th on turn 1, then on turn 2 we can play Heathcoth as a 5/2 for 3. So it's kind of like, imagine like a Super Laser Technician, but instead of being a 2/1, it's a 5/2. Like, it's just disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Then obviously you call it a draw engine with Ki-Adi-Mundi, the Mace Windows, of course, to stabilize the board mid portion of the game. We draw so many cards thanks to Ki-Adi-Mundi, makes the Rebellion Hammerhead extremely powerful. And then, of course, all the top end units. So we are focusing on units. We're not running a U-Wing reinforcement because we want to focus on units, because more units means it makes our Han Solo stronger. We can discount them with Han Solo. So that's the beauty of it. We're just going to be dropping bangers after bangers after bangers, putting tremendous amount of pressure on the opponent. So we're going to have Kylo Ren Beck, which is one of the best 7-drop in the game. The Yoda, which is extremely good in the Force decks, that is able to establish very strong board presence that we are able to do. And obviously the Krayt Dragon, always amazing in Han 2. As far as sideboard is concerned, we got 1 copy of Yoda's Lightsaber just because it's nice against aggro. We got the Bright Hopes to have a bit more defenses against space, notably when we play against those all-space aggro decks. We also have the Bombing Run for that same reason. We also have a couple of Ohm ones for the control matchups, and a couple of Shadow Points as a way to kind of run the out of aspect removal. So you can basically play Shadow Points, or you can play Fail the Dragon out of aspect. Obviously, one of the big inconvenience of running a green, red, white deck is that you don't have access to a lot of removal whenever you're running this. So you have to be running those kind of hard removal out of aspect, sometimes in sideboard, to be able to deal with large units. Technically, the deck just simply deal with large units just by combining different removal. Just a 4-Thor combined with a Mace Windu, a Hammerhead combined with a Yoda. Like, you can really deal tremendous amount of damage that way. We also have a few ambush units as well. But overall, having the option to have this kind of hard removals can be very nice. You can play Shadow Points, or you can play Fail the Dragon, depending on how you feel. I think both options are completely valid. And this is my version of Thorrk Hand Green Force. Just want to let you know that you can currently get Grogu on the card market for €9. And so yeah, pick it up. One of the hottest deck of the late set 4 meta was Boba Data Vault. It's a leader that is ridiculously popular, probably one of the most popular leader, like in relationship to its power level. People simply just love this deck, and it's a deck that actually got better with the new set. So it got a significant of new tools that makes it a pretty solid option, I feel like, going into the Galactic Championship. So you can be sure that there's going to be a significant amount of people who are going to be running Boba the Devil, especially day one. So this is something that you're going to have to keep in mind as you get into the event. Or it's also a deck that you want to try it for yourself. So what is the main difference between Boba Data Vault in set 4 and the one in set 5? Well, the main difference is the same difference as it is for Piet Red, is the fact that now the Invisible Hand is a far stronger card than it used to be. We can really run a very nice package of droids to go alongside with the Invisible Hand. This color combination is known for not having a lot of very good 2-drops. So in order to make the best out of a bad situation, we're running all those 2-drops that really run very well with the Invisible Hand. And we're not too unhappy about this because we don't really have that many good 2-drops to play instead anyways. It does make Invisible Hand so much better. So for this, we're going to have the DRK-1 Probe Droid, which does a great job at getting rid of General's Blade. And also the 2-2 shielded unit. I think DRK-1 Probe Droid is very well positioned in the current meta. And he might actually be the best droid that we got from the set 5. HK-47, another really solid droid as well. The OM series officers that some people, even in the previous meta, were already playing. And obviously the Vanguard droid bomber, which can deal some damage to face as well. So it's all about dealing those damage. We're still running the Elegant General Pride, which I think is an excellent turn 1. It's the best turn 1 play you could possibly have if you have the initiative, and obviously the solid TIE bombers. But obviously TIE bombers and General Prides are just not enough on their own. You need more 2-drops. So why not play the droid package? So we got 12 droids, 2-drops in total that you can play for free from the Invisible Hand. But we also have more droids. The droid missile platform is also a droid, so it's another card we can pick up, and that's a card that we were playing anyway because it's just an excellent damage and direct source for the deck anyway. So as far as the rest of the deck is pretty much the same. We do play a Craving Power because we're playing a Daredevil deck, and sometimes finding the barrage out of whenever you're running 60 card can be a little bit difficult. So we're running the Craving Power basically as extra copies of Overwhelming Barrage. Obviously it's not as good depending on the situation, but often enough it's actually does a very similar enough job. So this is really a solid card. Some people might be surprised to see Dorandan Gunship. More people have been electing to play instead the MC30. I personally prefer with Dorandan Gunship for 3 reasons. The first one is like it has immediate impact on the game. It comes into play, does something as it comes out, and because of Boba's ability, we can actually take advantage of the indirect damage that it provides. It has 6 health, meaning that it doesn't get dealt with by takedown, which is nice, and it has only 4 attack, meaning that it cannot be killed by Fail the Dragon. So the whole point of playing a 5 resource spaceship in this deck is to basically welcome Boba as a pilot the turn after. So the idea is to play this on turn 4 or turn 3 if you manage to ramp, and then after this you deploy Boba into it, and you start putting those gigantic space units and start racing. And it's just much more consistent to do this with Dora and Gunship because it's much more difficult to kill, and also it does have an immediate impact on the game. So I find it to be significantly better. Yeah, and other than this, of course, the top end is the same: Devastator, Maul, Planetary, Bombardment. As far as the sideboard, so sideboard is basically staying relatively the same. I used to be playing basically Palpatine's Return, but now with the inclusion, now that the fact that almost every single red Force deck is playing fourth throw, and there's a lot of fourth throw deck out there, meaning that having Salvage is actually an excellent anti-force throw card, because obviously it's going to be a 0 cost card. We can basically discard when an opponent is fourth throwing us, which feels incredibly bad for the fourth throw user. And it's of course a very relevant card against grindy matchup in control decks in general. And usually you're going to be wanting to have that card against those kind of fourth throw decks anyways. You're going to be very happy to have that card. So we've obviously Salvage Relentless is just a good combination. Obviously it cannot reanimate Grey Dragon, it cannot reanimate the Maul, and it does deal 1 damage to the unit that gets reanimated, so it does have some inconvenience, but overall there's just so many fourth throw out there that we are just in the meta where Salvage just makes more sense. Thank you so much for following this video, and I hope you guys all the best for the Galactic Championship. I would be releasing a last metagame kind of analysis in a couple of days. So if you're going to be taking part in a tournament and want to prepare yourself as well as possible, stay tuned. There's going to be some really sweet videos coming for you on the Thorrk Hard Text channel. Thank you so much for following the video, and see you next time.